Hello everyone, my name is Morris. Shortly after turning 40, I was listening to a time management audiobook, and funnily enough, this audiobook said I should think, or I should spend more time thinking on paper. I started to do a logbook where I write down most things that happen to me during the day, and as I used to do when I was younger, but for birds, during my thesis on copulating kestrels, I also kept a logbook. So this time it was for me. My main aim was to do ad libitum writing, to write down most everything that was happening to me during the day, events, places, people, and keep it all in one place, and to encourage also metacognition. I noticed that one important thing was the type of notebook itself. It had to be easy to take around, not too noticeable, and not too worried if somebody stole it or if I lost it. I chose a fairly cheap Muji notebook. So it was nice, it was light enough, not too many pages, so I could finish it in a reasonable amount of time. The notebook has 60 pages, which lasts me approximately 12 days, and then I can file it. So over the years, I've completed about 133 books over 4 years. They started off, the first one lasted about 6 months. As far as the show and tell goes, what did I do? Well, this is what I did. I filled out 133 notebooks. In 2010 and 2011, I filled out approximately 25 a year, then about 30 in 2012 and about 40 in 2013. In 2012 is when I found out about quantified self, and that motivated me to change some things and probably made me do a bit more. So I'd like to share with you a bit about how the structure of the book evolved throughout the years, how I dealt with the blank pages, and the things that I learned while doing it. As many other quantified self projects, it's about developing a habit and making it a bit more comfortable. So the first thing I added was structure to make the books a bit easier to review, like separate days, page numbers, numbers on the books, all to make it a bit easier to index, and I can put those things into Excel and analyze it statistically. I also found it useful to separate the daily logs from summaries of things I read, like articles and books, so I summarize the information I read from back to front in the notebook, making it easier to separate the two. So soon I found that the book was a great way to share things as well with people. I carry it around with me, and I keep a record of it, asking people a lot of times to draw what they mean. And then I have a memento for future use as well. Some of these drawings help me to remind me immediately of the ambiance, the place, the person, and the process behind the event, and some are just nice moments. Like this one, my 5-year-old son Oliver, who likes to draw in my book. It was only after about 3 years that I finally decided to make a separate food page to jot down everything I've eaten. That helped me to plan meals better, have a bit more variety, and find out what not to eat at night, or what I didn't digest well. Shortly after that, I also reserved an idea page, making it much easier to review ideas that come up. And I feel that both the food page and the idea page kind of came out of ideas from the quantified self videos on the webpage. Some of you may think that pen and paper are a bit archaic, but its analysis, scientific analysis, isn't that old. This is a graph of scientific papers that analyze journaling over recent decades. Very few until the late 1990s, but it grew quite quickly and seems to have stabilized. Meanwhile, scientific publications in life logging are still quite rare, only 44 since 2010, but I think we can learn from both of them and that we tend to combine them. For example, both journaling and life logging involve analyzing events, which is the next thing I want to talk about. I place event titles on each page, a summary of the most important things on that page, usually not more than 5. So what I've done is I've analyzed more in detail in 2013 the number of events here on the y-axis and some days with more than 30 events. As we shall see, it's not really the number of events but the types of events that really matter or are more interesting to me. Many friends say I should go more digital, but it's fairly difficult to copy all my notebooks and there are a number of issues. But I can copy my index from every book quite easily into Excel and then analyze them a bit better. I can classify them into several ways. This is just one, but overall 2013 fall into work events, personal life, reading and writing, in approximately these percentages. I personally thought I spent more time writing than 10%. Within those groups, the event types in what I call personal life are more varied and not always fair. I spend a lot of time with my wife and with my kids, and I also with my wife, but my wife is lower down here on the scale. I spend a lot of time listening to music, but I rarely write about it. Looking on a weekly basis, there are more events on Tuesday and Wednesday, typically at work, and much less on the weekend. Saturday would be like the least eventful day, also reported by other authors like Nicholas Felton in his yearly report. Regarding what I read from back to front, I was surprised by work creep. In other words, I thought I was reading for pleasure most of the time, but a lot of the time I'm reading for work. More than 50% of those pages have to do with work. I teach, by the way, so a lot of them are class preparations. I've also read my events to steps and to floors, to day of the week, to week of the year, the number of events, and the pages used in the notebook using Fitbit data. So here's a graph of steps taken per day and events per day during the week, but really I found little direct relation. There's like a low correlation if I analyze it statistically between steps and events. Surprisingly, there was a bit of a better result if I included floors, which are much lower on the weekend and much more related to events. So floors were much more related to events than steps were in this case. I mentioned before also about metacognition, and definitely since starting the books, I think much more about the beginning, the middle, and end of things. About the run-up to something, how it will play out, and what I can get out of it or learn from it. I spend much more time preparing things, and I'm more aware of the process itself. And then at the end, since I spent so much time preparing it, and the event itself was more intense, my brain needs to reuse that information, and then it gets recycled more easily. Using a notebook and quantifying things also provides me with something we normally lack in large quantities, which is enough feedback. So if I need more feedback, all I have to do is go back to my black notebook friends. Lastly, I'd like to report a hitherto unnoticed effect of marriage. Last year I got married in June, and since then I've had even more events per page, so that may be an idea for future study, the effect of human bonding on efficiency and productivity.
Thank you.